Hi there, welcome back to Authors on the Air. I'm your host, James Latwell. With us today, we've got Delia Pitts, and Delia has a brand new book out, and it's Death of an Ex. I mean, that cover just sets the mood completely. But first of all, as we record this, the first book in this series, Trouble in Queenstown, I mean, was just nominated for a Shamus Award for best PI mystery. I mean, congratulations to you. That's so well deserved, but it's good to see you there.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you, Jim. Yes, that was a wonderful surprise to wake up to yesterday about Trouble in Queenstown. Couldn't be more thrilled.
No kidding. Well, it's well deserved. And, Vandy Merrick was introduced in Trouble with Queenstown, and now she's back in Death of an Ex. And, she's such a great character, but maybe tell folks a little bit about, what Vandy finds herself into in this new book, Death of an Ex.
Yes, well, Vandy Merrick is the central character. She's a private investigator who's returned to her very small central New Jersey hometown. She's in her late 40s, and she is a mother, although the big wound in her life is that her teenage daughter died, as we meet her in the second book, died about 2.5 years ago in a horrible accident at college. And so Vandy is still on that recovery track as she goes about her very new job of being a private investigator in a very tiny town where she has lots of connections, but she's still rebuilding those connections. As the title so cleverly says, this is about the death of an ex. And the ex happens to be Vandy's ex-husband, the father of her recently deceased daughter. And so automatically she is in a very fraught position, both Vandy is trying to recover her stability in this new world without her daughter, but then she's also now confronted with this unsettling return of her ex-husband, who continues to be messy and alluring and dynamic and a lot of trouble. And so when he dies under suspicious circumstances, Vandy feels compelled. She feels he's his client. He's her client now. And so she takes on the case of solving his death and works with the police sometimes and without the police at other moments as she digs further into her husband or ex-husband's life.
Yeah, it well captures the theme and plot of this book. But Vandy is dealing with more than her share of grief and loss, and you managed to thread that in such subtle ways that, I mean, it was really heart-wrenching. A couple of points when she grabs the necklace that she has on that has her daughter's initial on it. I mean, how did you come up with these ways of showing how she's still grieving and going through this process, with these kind of little clues that aren't in your face to the reader, but it sure gets the point across?
Well, I wanted to deal with a lot of the tropes that we find in private eye fiction, and a couple of the tropes that we see everywhere, almost everywhere, certainly going back to the golden age of American crime fiction in the 1930s and 40s. We think of the private eye as a loner with few, if any, connections to society writ large or to his, and it's usually a man, of course, his
Right.
personal circle. And I wanted to break down some of those tropes with Vandy. I wanted, obviously, first of all, she's a woman. She's an African-American woman. I wanted to make her a little bit older than we often find in private eye fiction, but still very fit. She's a former law enforcement officer, so she's extremely competent in those basic skills, physical skills and investigative skills. But I wanted to give her an edge. I wanted to have her be funny, and I think I succeeded at that. I think she's got a real sense of wit, but also of humor. But I also wanted her to have this very, very profound grief that she is grappling with. And I thought it was important that she maintain her toughness. And in maintaining her toughness, of course, she's fighting to, you might say, suppress some of that those expressions of grief. And so I found that the use of the necklace with her daughter's initial, M for Monica, on it was a good way for her to be constantly carrying that wound.
Mm-hmm.
It's exposed, but few people who confront her every day know what it means. It's really something for her, about her. And as we learn through the book, we find out more about that necklace and where it came from, what it meant to the person who gave it, and to the person who received it, and to the person who covered up where it came from. So we learn a lot about that necklace, in addition to the initial pun intended use of it as a constant reminder for Vandy.
Yeah, I just thought that was such a great way to just immediately tap into those emotions that, you know, she would have as a grieving mom. I thought it was really, really well done. Now,
Yes.
in Queenstown, it's, you know, a city, but it has that small town feel. And I mean, I grew up in a small town, and I wondered if you did, because I mean, this environment is like everybody knows who's sleeping with who's hanging with who, all the gossip and that kind of stuff. I mean, it just brought you right into that world. How did you do that?
Well, I live in a small town right now in central New Jersey, which is not Queenstown. Queenstown is fictional. I hasten to add, no one that I know it does not have in this town corrupt politicians that I know of, or dubious police officers, etc. No, I grew up in Chicago. I'm definitely a South Side Chicago girl, born and bred, and didn't escape till I went to college from Chicago. So everything I know about growing up was taken from Chicago, including, by the way, the name of my detective. Merrick's is a family name in my family on my father's side. And one of the inspirations for Vandy was my cousin, still very much alive, who's quite a bit older than I am, still living in Chicago. Her name is Esther Merrick's. And when Esther was a young woman in Chicago on the South Side, she and her husband founded a very small security operation, a little detective agency, you might say, on the South Side of Chicago. And I was impressed at that time as a child, as a girl growing up with my very, I thought, glamorous older cousin, who was combined being very feminine, cute, and sexy with being very tough, and a very single-minded businesswoman. Certainly Esther Merrick's never got involved in, as far as I know, in murders or in political corruption of the kind that I explore. But that was really an inspiration for me to think, you know, this is something a woman, or several women in this case, can do together, form a small agency, pursue a private investigation operation. And so very much my growing up experiences in Chicago fed into that. But no, I did not grow up in a small town, but I definitely live in one now. And certainly knowing all your neighbors, what they're doing, who they're up to with, and where is a feature of the life I know about now. My sons grew up here, and so I definitely haven't that experience of how it is to grow up through living through my sons growing up here as well. So that's sort of my semi understanding of small town life. I've been here for more than 25 years now.
Yeah. So you've seen it. You're in it. You understand it. Now, you know, kind of on a related piece of that, I mean, the characters that you bring to us in Death of an Ex, I mean, you seem like I feel like I've known these women forever. You know, you can sit in a room and you can just hear them, you know, banter back and forth, and, you know, gossip in front of people that, you know, they're talking about. And it's just so real. I mean, the characters I really enjoyed, you know, Tariq and Melinda and Dumont. I mean, they're all very real. How do you go about creating characters with that kind of depth? Because I didn't find anybody that was just a set piece. I mean, these are all characters that are there for a reason in the story.
I agree. I'm glad you experienced that. That's how I experience them. I have been thinking a lot about the side characters some of whom are sidekicks. That is, they're the supporters to Vandy, and some of whom are the side antagonists who may or may not be the big bad, but they are doing their own smaller bad things. So, but mainly I think that those characters all are central figures in their own life stories. They all have a very rich and complex set of motivations, most of which are not on the page,
Right.
because the story I'm telling is not about them, but they know it, they have it, I know it because I made them up. And so I like to build into even those smaller characters a rich background that they can then express through their language, through some of their references. The fact that, for instance, the current wife of Vandy's ex grew up in a very hard Scrabble environment in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, that comes out in as a tangent, really, but it explains, I think, a lot about that character, why she got into the fix she got into, why she got into the marriage with Vandy's ex-husband, and her current behaviors and activities. So I don't go a lot into the background. It's not a story about her childhood in Pennsylvania, but I think it's relevant to us understanding and feeling that we get these characters, even if they are certainly not the central figure of the stories.
Absolutely. I mean, it adds so much texture to the story that you're telling that, it just feels real. You're in this town with these people and you're experiencing the story. So
I'm glad it comes off that way. I feel very sympathetic for all of these characters.
Oh yeah,
I think that's another element of it. I don't dislike or hate any of the characters, even the worst of them. I think all have actually really good motives that I could get behind if they maybe chose some different methods to pursuing some of their goals. I think there is a difference between the goals of most of these characters and the methodologies they choose. Many of them choose methods that, first of all, are morally repugnant, and second of all, are against the law. In some cases, but in any event, they are choosing them for goals that are in fact quite laudable. And I wanted that to be very clear, that wanting to help people, wanting to help your old neighborhood, wanting to help the families of children that you work with, these are good things. These are not bad goals. These are not evil personified, but a lot of people get twisted around in this particular story.
Exactly. Without giving a whole lot away, I mean, there's this whole, success is everything, and the dogs agree with me here. The success, is everything, and you've got to, everybody's got to, succeed, and there's a cost to that, and I think you bring that out, really, really well.
Well, thank you. I'm trying for that. That's what I'm trying. I think there's a lot of carelessness in people. And I think that I always think of that. That's a Fitzgerald phrase, these careless people. And I think a lot about that a lot of what we identify as crime or bad behavior comes often out of carelessness. It comes out of not thinking through to the consequences of your choices. It comes from sometimes not caring about the people whose actions you affect. And I wanted to get at some of that behavior, to document it, and then to show where it leads.
Yeah. Now, this isn't the first time you've written a PI, series. You had the PI series set in Harlem, and now you've gone over to New Jersey. What was the attraction to have a new character in a new series, with Vandy in New Jersey?
Well, I'd always been thinking the first series, thank you for bringing it up, featured a male character, Rook, who was a Iraq War vet who had moved recently to Harlem, and we follow his fledgling career as a private investigator there, which I found a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I got to dig into some of my urban background and roots, and that was a lot of fun. But I always, since I was living in New Jersey, was struck by the fact that my small hometown here is very diverse. one of the first things I noticed when we moved here as we were enrolling our sons in high school was seeing a document which said that the school district here had something like 55 different languages spoken in the homes of the students who attended school in our town. And that struck me, and that really hit me forcefully. And I thought, this is not a homogenous, boring, small town
Right.
that we imagine in our fiction or in our television shows. This is a very diverse community, and I always therefore wanted to dig into that aspect of the reality of how we live in modern America. That the world is here. We don't have to look at the world is here. We are living in a diverse and vibrant and exciting environment, even if we're living in extremely small towns that have their limitations and their closed and blinkered ways of looking at the world. So that was one of the first things that made me excited to try to bring those perceptions about the diverse community that I live in into these books. I also wanted to write a woman detective. I wanted to write a woman of a certain age. I wanted to not have her be a 20-something or even a 30-something. I wanted her have to be verging on a 50-something, and to see how that could expand, but also limit her capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, she was so refreshing. I mean, like you described earlier, she's got an edge, but she's got that heart that I think comes through in the story. And yeah, she's the kind of person you want on your side. You know, if everything goes to hell, I mean, she's the one that you're going to go to.
Yes, I think that's right. And I think she sees, as someone who's lost so much, just lost her whole world, she's very, very sympathetic to people who are on the edge or the risk of losing their worlds.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through. She's not afraid of her emotions. I find I'm writing her and she's often in tears, and I think, wait a minute, let's stop this. She doesn't have to actually go into tears. She needs to dial that back sometimes as I'm writing her. But she's a very emotional person. She's caught up in her emotions, but she controls them as well. She's not afraid of being sexy and being sexually active. She's not interested, as we meet her in these books, in forming some lasting partnership that will help her ride off into the sunset and be carried over the threshold by some wonderful man. That's not her vision anymore of the way her life is going to go. And I think that's one of the things we explore in Death of an Ex also, is the gap between what she had imagined her life was going to be like and what it ended up and where it's going now moving forward. And I think those are issues that a lot of us, men and women, think about as we reach middle age or beyond middle age.
Yeah, very, very much. Yeah. Now, you've had a really fascinating background and career. You were a journalist. You earned your doctorate in history. You worked in academia, and you gave up those hollowed halls to come and write crime fiction with us. Now we're glad you did, but what drove you to the dark side?
Oh, I think I emerged into the light. Quite the opposite. No, I had very fortunate to have had a number of really exciting careers, not just jobs, but careers. Back in Chicago as an extreme youngster, even a teenager, I worked for the Chicago Sun-Times in every kind of capacity, from copy boy to feature writer and headline writer, and had a great time doing some of that. But I have a strong nerdy background, and I had to, I guess, pursue it. I always say to people that, well, my mother was a professional librarian and my father was a clinical psychologist. So I don't think I really had a choice about becoming a crime fiction writer. I think it was just, it was inevitable for me to get there eventually. But I was very, very fortunate to be able to serve in the Foreign Service of the United States for 11 years as a diplomat. I my husband also was a diplomat, and that's why I joined the Foreign Service, so we could pursue our careers together. And we served together in wonderful posts in Africa, in Mexico City, and also in Washington, D.C. Certainly the most exotic of the places we served was Washington, D.C. in many ways. And then that peripatetic lifestyle was something we didn't really want for our sons. We wanted to settle and down and be in one place to raise them. So I left. My husband retired. I left the Foreign Service and went into academic administration, and worked first in Texas and then moved to New Jersey, and had a great time working at Rutgers University for almost 20 years, not quite 20, and doing things, everything from student affairs to being a dean of students to being a diversity administrator to being a discipline officer to being a student advisor, all kinds of things. It was fabulous. It was a really, really good experience. And if you want to learn about the variety of the human comedy, being in a university is a great place to do that.
I bet it is.
It's not an accident that I made Vandy Merrick an ex-university cop. I thought that was a good sort of nod to her being on the edge of the academic world. She's not an academic herself, but she has more than a little bit of a clue about how academics are or aren't.
That's awesome. Yeah. That connection, I didn't make it until you just mentioned that, but okay. Very, very good. We're going to end up with something we call 3 quick hits, and that's just 3 quick questions. I want to put you in Vandy's head, and I'll just ask these questions, and whatever comes to mind, you let us know. What is Vandy's drink of choice? What does she like to drink?
Well, she is a recovering alcoholic. She made a vow not to drink alcoholic beverages. She's broken that a couple of times, but essentially she's down for being in a non-alcoholic mode. She loves some of the mocktails that her bartender friend puts together at her favorite and only bar in town. And so she really likes a Virgin Collins. It's a Tom Collins without the gin or the vodka, and she really likes it. It's sort of like a lemonade that's a little spicier than a lemonade would be. That's her favorite drink.
That fits. How about her music? What does Vandy listen to?
She's really old school. She's a little old head in that, although she was a teenager in the 80s, she's really influenced by her parents. And so she'll go for Roberta Flack. She'll go for some of the older songs of what we might say the 70s in the soul vein, although she loves Beyonce. And she can move forward. Mary J. Blige, she enjoys as well. So she likes tough, no nonsense women who come in every decade.
That makes sense. That fits her. And then finally, what is Vandy's greatest fear?
She fears making a human connection again and losing it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's been through that with the loss of her daughter, and having experienced that, she's very, very fearful of getting overly connected to and invested in someone who will then be lost to her again. Yep. She doesn't think she can handle that another time.
I can see that. Folks, we've been talking with Delia Pitts, the author of Death of an Ex. It's fantastic. I think you're going to love it. And, since the new, the Shamus Award just came out for Trouble in Queensland, go grab that too, because you're going to want to see how Vandy started. But again, this was a fantastic book. I really enjoyed it. And it's great to see you and spend a little time with you today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking with you.
All right. Take care. We'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye.